Today, we thought we would talk about job security and job performance or insecurity. So, I mentioned last time about insecure thinking being the cause of most of our problems, and that's worth bearing in mind again as we
Yeah.
chat about this.
Yes.
Um, and I think anytime we attach our security or worth to something external, like our job title or our job performance or even our salary, the reason that can feel insecure or not secure is because it can always change. It's
Mm.
a moving, changing thing.
Yeah.
And even our thoughts and feelings about it can move and change. So
Mm.
that's why it doesn't feel so secure. And within the coaching that Lindsay and I talk about, we are really talking or pointing you towards the fact that we are whole and secure already inside. Not that there's an inside or outside, but
Mm.
it's not based on external factors.
Yeah.
So we would say before the thoughts and our personal mind comes in and gets busy, we are already secure. And
Mm.
so we can have a real, proper, genuine sense of confidence when we're kind of looking in that direction. So that's
Yeah.
my intro. What would you
Yeah.
add to that, Lindsay?
Well, yeah, and I think what I is really helpful to point to is as part of talking about feeling insecure at work or worrying about your performance, or that might even be something that's measured and often is, particularly in many corporate environments. In fact, in so many environments, there's actually even a measure going on of your performance. But to be able to talk about that as a separate thing to how we feel about ourselves, and to talk about that as a separate thing from feeling confident and calm and secure in who we are. Because I think what the idea of this discussion today, or one of the ideas behind it, is to help separate out those two things. So that, because when, as you said in the intro, when our sense of self, our sense of security, our sense of feeling okay is intimately meshed with our work, then, or anything in our life, but we're talking about work right now, anytime that that changes, there's something, either we lose our job or we change our job, or maybe we go off on maternity or paternity leave, or any number of things can change within we get made redundant. And if our sense of worth is really tied up in that, if our sense of security and our sense of confidence is tied up with that, then we're going to be in all sorts of trouble when that kind of lever pulls away, and we haven't got that there. So what we really want to help people to see is that, no, those two things are completely unrelated. Now, you might have lots of thinking about it. You might have lots of thinking that goes along. Say you do something really well at work. Say you do perform well. You have your annual review and you have some great scores, and they do a 360 on you and everything's wonderful. You might have lots, and there's no reason not to feel proud about that. There's no reason not to have some good feelings about that. But just to know that that's going to be momentary. It's going to be coming from your thinking of like, oh, brilliantly, I did really well. I'm doing really well. And that it's also going to change, because most people I know, when they look particularly at performance, even if they get a good result, particularly if they are high achievers, they'll then look at where didn't I quite meet 100%, or where could I have,
Yeah.
almost immediately, that can jump in. So we can see that it's not coming from the performance review. Let's use that as an example. It's coming totally from us all in the moment about it. And so equally, the reverse is true. So say we have a performance review and it's not so good, and we can go down that rabbit hole. Our mind is often going to go down that rabbit hole of feeling insecure and feeling like we haven't done well enough. And yes, there may be things that we need to improve, but when we kind of know where our feelings are coming from about it, as in our own thinking, our own perception, that we're not controlling, but it's just what's occurring within us, then we can kind of be with all of that, feel all of that, but then also be able to be in more, maybe when it's settled a bit, able to be more in a space of objectivity and a bit more neutrality. I think, okay, was this a fair assessment of my work? What can I do better? Why aren't I? What am I frightened of where I might not be doing better in that space or that area? So and we can also still hold a sense of security, worth, confidence, even while all of that negative kind of that review that we may have hoped for better on, even while all of that is going on, because the two are not linked, they're actually completely separate.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing that I feel is one of the most important and helpful things to learn about insecurity and performance and all of that is that then they're not actually coming from the job.
Yeah.
As crazy as that
Yeah.
might sound, but
Yeah. I think it does sound different. It's a unique way of looking at it, but once people really see it, it's so freeing. And as we've said in all the others, probably, that feeling of insecurity and the bubbling thoughts that are going on, or the tension that we feel from those changing thoughts and feelings and what we're analyzing,
mm,
um, is really an alarm again to say, slow down to now. And
mm,
and what is here now? Slow down. You're probably believing your thoughts about something.
mm,
It's not the something. And slow down to look at what's really here now in this
mm,
second. And even just slowing that down feels more peaceful and calm to me,
mm,
because you're recognizing that that changing narrative up there feels whizzy or fast or whatever you
mm,
want to call it.
absolutely.
So, yeah, I think you're just slowing down to the speed of life and to
Mm,
reality,
mm,
you might
mm,
say.
yeah.
And really feeling that we've got nothing to prove. We are who we are how we are, and life is now. And in this moment, we're perfectly fine. And I think if you slow down to that place, then you have more clarity of mind naturally, because your mind, as you say, is more neutral and
Mm,
open to allow those thoughts and feelings to just come through, understanding that that's how we operate. The mind will get busy. That's how it works.
yeah.
But when we know that, we can just settle and allow it all to be.
Mm, yeah.
And the point is that right here, right now, if there's no clear and present danger, clear means specific and present means right here, right now,
Mm,
there's nothing for us to actually do. And if we can't do anything about it, entertaining those stressful thoughts is just going to make us feel bad in the moment.
mm,
So hopefully that's clear and people can feel the kind of direction that we're pointing in, because I just think it's useful for people to see the simplicity of it when we slow.
mm, yes. Yeah, and I think it's also because often, say in the example that that we're talking about with a performance review, whether it's positive or negative,
Mhm.
what you will notice in that whirring of the mind is that inevitably it will start to think about the future, or it will go back into the past, and it won't be about what's here and now. It won't be about this current review. It might be assessing and comparing to the previous review, which was in the past, or it might be then catastrophizing about what this means for the future, or adding pressure on to say, well, now I've got to keep up this level of great performance that I've
Mhm.
been, there's so many different ways and places that the mind is going to go. Because, as you say, that's what our mind does. That's its job. That's its function. But when we can just be in the present, which is here with this review, here with these feelings about this performance review, or whatever else is going on in terms of our security at work, then it's much more simple. It's not dealing with all of the stuff that's in the imagination of the mind or in the memory of the mind, all of which isn't reality right here, right now. And we can only deal with what is right here, right now. We
Exactly.
absolutely cannot deal with anything that's in the past, and we cannot deal with anything that might happen in the future. So it's just really helpful, I think, to see that. And I know it can also be really hard to see, particularly if we have been used to measuring
Mhm.
ourselves. Yeah, as in how well am I doing at work means how well am I doing either at life or as a person, or, if we've been used to attaching our sense of worth and security to our job, particularly if we're successful, that can be quite a comforting thing. Like
Mm.
there might be other areas of your life where it's like it's all a little bit chaotic, but at work, I'm okay at
I've
work.
got it. Yeah.
I've got it here at
Yeah.
work. And so trying to suggest that actually, no, it's not even coming from there can be a bit confronting and can feel a bit like, well, where is that sense of worth coming from? And I think what we would point to is that what if it's not coming, as you mentioned in the intro, what if it's not coming from anything that's outside of us? Like, what if that security and capacity to do well, perform in the moment, feel okay, that confidence is just something that we are born with, is built in, and it only ever gets covered over by a truckload of thinking and overthinking and a busy mind. And, like,
Yeah.
I think we only need to look at babies. It's that kind of thing when you just
Yeah.
look at babies and small children and you would never question the confidence of a small child because they're completely in their confidence and their security. Now, they have lots of emotions for sure, lots of whizzing experiences. But what we're pointing to is that there's another space of feeling okay, knowing you're okay, and security that has absolutely nothing to do with the outside world and never will have anything with the outside world. And as I say, whilst that can feel confronting if we're used to attaching it to how good we are at our job or how good a parent we are or how good a partner we are, in the long run, it's actually much more freeing, as you said, to know that what if that isn't true? I guess really that's the question it's to pose, isn't it? Just to consider, what if that wasn't true? What if there's nothing that we have to do to feel more secure?
Yeah. And how freeing is that? We
Mm,
can just slow down and take life one step at a time, which is what's happening anyway, other than what we do with our
mm,
imagination or memory, as you say. And I like to look at it as the default setting. The
mm.
default
Yeah.
setting for a human is we are life right here, right now. And like you
Mm,
said, a baby is a brilliant example because they have no sense of identity. Their worth isn't attached to anything because they just feel awareness. They're just aware
mm,
of,
mm,
oh, look, I'm here, or,
mm,
you know, there's a door or there's a, dog or what, they're just
mm,
seeing what's there and responding in the moment perfectly as we're designed to do. It's only once they start getting attached to their identity and their place in the world or
mm,
whatever that they will then start to feel some of that insecurity coming in. Because
mm,
a baby's not going to think, oh my goodness, look, I've got milk on my top. I can't be
mm.
seen in public. Well, we'd have
Totally.
all sorts of thinking about that, wouldn't
Yeah.
we? So
Yeah.
it's
100%.
the little child, the baby is such a good place to look
Mm,
at to see that
mm,
pure, present, clear minded, responding to what is happening exactly in the moment. That's
mm,
why they might be crying and having a tantrum 1 minute, and you've done your best to help, however that
mm,
may look, depending
mm,
on your own thinking. Um, and then 5 minutes later, they're fine. And you're like, oh my goodness, that was awful. That
mm.
they've moved on. And they're
Yes.
actually, ironically, teaching us how to get back to our default state. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
really interesting for people to look. So,
Mm, yeah. And obviously, as we mature into children and we become teenagers and then adults, it's obviously a process where our level of awareness, our consciousness, that sense of self becomes built. And in some ways, it kind of feels a bit like we have to kind of go through that process of building that self, only then kind of realize that it isn't who we are, that maybe, and that happens at different times in people's lives. But I think what we're trying to point to in that kind of like baby, small child example is that there is an essence to us that is untouched or unchanged by any of our kind of experience that goes on at work, at home, wherever, that is something that we can rely on, is our, as you say, our default setting that we can come back to. And, I guess it would just be, particularly if you do struggle with feeling insecure at work or you really worry about your performance, if you can just imagine taking taking off of the table that your performance or your sense of security has, or has anything to do with who you are as an actual human being. And then how might you show up at work differently
Yeah.
if you really knew that, okay, there's nothing that can be added or taken away here from me as a person. How might you take more risks at work or set more boundaries?
Yeah.
Or, just really show up in a different way if you knew, whereas, because, work, as we've discussed in previous lives, there's so much, we can do so much people pleasing and
Yeah.
tying ourselves up in knots and, overworking and overthinking because it all seems so vitally important to our sense of self. But if we can and separate that out even just a little bit, I think not only can work become more enjoyable, but we show up differently, which is ultimately what we want. We want to be able to show up as our most clear, calm self.
Yeah. Yeah. We're less distracted.
Mm,
We're less in our head. We're just more, as I said in the last slide, which someone actually commented on and said it was useful. We're just open, open
mm,
heart, open mind, curious. And I just think curiosity, as I've said before, is such a great quality because it's so quick and easy. If we're feeling the tension, there's my alarm. It's a question mark. Is
mm.
this, am I believing what's really happening here? Or am I more likely believing my thoughts? Because
Yes.
every feel is coming from our thoughts really about it. So
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So I hope that's helpful to anybody who catches this. And
Mm,
we are hoping to do some more work on this, perhaps after the summer break, because my
yeah.
kids are breaking up now. So
Mm,
yeah, let us know if you've got any questions
yeah.
on this topic,
Yeah.
and we will see you next time.
Great.
Thanks a lot,
Thanks so much,
Lindsay.
Susie. Great to
Take
hear from you.
care.
Bye.
Bye bye.